And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. Thanks to everybody who came out last night to Sports and Social to hang out and watch the UConn coronation. Hope you took my advice. Although I only gave it there in the Sports and Social. I said UConn to cover, the under, and the Purdue team under. I did not parlay all three of them, which is a mistake. I played them all individually. Should have parlayed all three of them. But I hope you took that advice.
Win's a win.
Yeah, there's where win-win-win. Yeah. Across the board. Big night for your pal. Had a great time. Sports and Social is awesome. That's the place to be for UFC 300 on Saturday night. Make your plans right now. You can reserve your spot. Get a table by going to the Sports and Social website at Live Casino and Hotels website, and then you got to go in person to reserve your blue reclining chairs. It's awesome. That giant media wall, the best place to watch every major event, including UFC 300 this Saturday night at Sports and Social. Busy show on tap today. Coming up in a few minutes, Sam Dykstra from MLB.com, MLB-Pipeline.com. He's going to join us. We're going to discuss. Do you hear a buzz in the background? Is that? It's that? Yes. Okay, you're right. It was that. Boy, it seems louder today.
It does. It does.
Is that crazy?
No, I definitely noticed it a little bit more.
Like, I thought I was hearing it in my headphones.
This morning.
I was like, what the hell is that? Also, my voice still hasn't fully come back. I am still strained.
You sound a lot better.
No, I think I've just adjusted to the figure out what to do in order to make it work. I would still like the ease. It feels like I'm straining in order to be able to speak. But hey, at least I don't also have to do a 3-hour radio show tonight and then a show and a game tomorrow. I can rest my voice.
That's good. Good thing you don't.
Never. I'll never be able to rest my voice. If anybody has any tea and just happens to be driving around Towson this morning. Not like tea to spill, not like,
take that too.
Well, I mean, depending on what the tea is, that's a good point. If it's interesting, let me hear that tea. But I could use some actual hot tea. Might have to go to the station early tonight in order to stock up on some tea. And I got to remember how to make that machine work, and I always struggle with it.
It's pretty easy.
Anyway, yeah. Sam Dykstra will join us. We will talk about the Norfolk Tides. They're scoring 11.1 runs per game this season, which is nutty so far, but what does it actually mean? I guess I don't know if they posted my column yesterday. I guess it'll probably go up today at PressBoxOnline.com, discussing that, like what's the actual correlation topic that we got into yesterday with John Mioli. Like, yes, we know the Orioles have scuffled offensively, and the Tides are scoring an insane amount of runs. But what's the actual correlation between the two things? My opinion is the only correlation at the moment is it's time for a change at second base. Like, I'm sticking with that. There's no excuses. This is not acceptable to continue to say, well, we'll make do. My opinion is that you have room for both Connor Norby and Jackson Holliday to be on this roster. And I don't feel as strongly about, like, Tony Kemp should go. Plain and simple. Tony Kemp shouldn't have been here. He should go. That one I feel strongly about. As I said yesterday, I don't feel strongly about Ramon Arias, but I think he can. I think it would be okay for the Orioles to outright DFA Ramon Arias if there isn't a trade available. And if the trade available for Ramon Arias is for a bag of balls, I think it's okay to make that trade. As we said, it's beautiful in the AL Central. They've got, you can go for walks. I think they have the Jell-O is delicious. They'll bring you down for dinner at 5 o'clock every day. And then I think the great visiting hours in the AL Central, I think your grandkids are allowed to be there until 8 p.m. every day. So I think it's just time for the AL Central for Ramon Arias. I think it's time to put him in the home. I don't mean that disparagingly. Like, I love Ramon Arias. I just think the Orioles have outgrown him. That's my opinion. And I'm not it's not time to DFA Austin Hayes. It's not time to DFA Cedric Mullins. It's not time to just accept any trade whatsoever for those two guys. But I do believe it can be time for Ramon Urias. It to me is not a necessity. It's something you could do. Moving on from Tony Kemp and establishing someone as the second baseman to me is a necessity. It's a must at this point for the Orioles. It's unacceptable that this has been their answer. And as I've asked about why they've gone to the length of playing Connor Norby in left field while they don't really have a second baseman, I've had more people that have suggested, well, maybe they refuse to let it be Norby because it might make the transition awkward for when it's time for it to be Jackson Holliday. Because what if Connor Norby comes up and is playing really well?
Then he's playing really well and you're
correct.
Winning games?
Like, I get what you're saying, that as an organization you need to have a plan for Jackson Holliday because he's that important. And when he demands that it's time to be up, which you've already passed that point, that you want it to be easy for him to come up, and if he struggles for a week, it's not the end of the world. Like, everybody still wants him to be there, whereas if Connor Norby is playing really well and you bring Jackson Holliday up, is everybody going to say, hey, put Norby back there? Dude, these are first world problems. I beg that that's an issue that you have to deal with. I beg of it. I can't fathom believing that's actually a problem. Like, imagine thinking that you have to prepare for that. God, what if we have too many good players? Oh, no! Oh, heavens! I'm writing about the topic today at PressBoxOnline.com, but you kind of know how I feel. Hey, read the column anyway because, well, just do it, all right? Like, just do it if you don't mind. Go give the old clickaroo over there.
Would it be ridiculous to, suggest platooning Norby and Holliday at second base? Just because, obviously you want Holliday to be an everyday player, but if he's not, if you don't think he's ready right now, then why not?
If you don't, well, you're suggesting that he doesn't play against lefties. I don't know.
If that's the issue that they're.
Well, that was one of the things that they suggested, obviously, from the spring. I have to pull up Connor Norby's numbers against lefties in order to make sure that I would be comfortable with the idea. Last year, I don't think I can get a career. Splits.
Can't get a career.
Versus lefties last year, he hit 285.
Okay.
Now
actually,
that was
better against righties. Yeah.
Well, he does hit better against righties. That's or he did last year anyway. And he only had 151 at bats last year against lefties, but he hit 285. I don't know if a true platoon is the answer because to an extent, like, Jackson Holliday's got to hit major league lefties, and you got to get there. I also think that Connor Norby, you're kind of acknowledging you feel like he could play multiple positions. I'm not saying you're making him a super utility man. You're not saying he's Ryan Flaherty, but I think he could be here and play. I think it's time for him to play. I just don't think that he should be in the minors anymore. And I think that if you're going to have Ramon, you've got two spots on your roster that are being held by Ramon Urias and Tony Kemp. And neither one of them is necessarily an everyday player. So, yeah, I think there's room to figure out a way for both of them to be on the roster and to find ways for Jackson Holliday to play essentially every day, but Connor Norby to also play enough to warrant him being here. I think that's okay. I don't feel the same way about the outfield today. Not yet, but as I continue to say, I think that could change at some point. Of course, as far as last night, we're going to talk plenty of Orioles. I mentioned Sam Dykstra. We'll also preview the Orioles-Red Sox series. Lou Merloni, former Red Sox infielder, NESN analyst. He will join us a little bit later on in the program. Opening day in Boston after they started the season on the West Coast. They're 7-3. Like, they're off to a very good start. The pitching's been better than expected. I get it. They've probably played some of the right opponents. So maybe you don't overreact to a 7-3 start for a team that a lot of us thought was going to be a bottom feeder in the AL East, but maybe not. Maybe these pitchers are ready to take a next step forward, And like we always, it's funny because we looked at the Red Sox and said they look like the worst team in the AL East, but they also looked like they could win the AL Central. Like they still had talent. We talked about that a couple of times. Like you still saw Devers and Casas and Grissom and, Tyler O'Neill's off to a clearly an incredible start this season. Durant's off to a great start.
7 bases already or something.
He's off to a great start. He wouldn't have been high on that list of like guys that I was super excited about. And then who's the Japanese cat that they?
Yoshida.
Yoshida, right?
Also Yoshida.
They've got talent. If the pitching takes a step forward, and it's all guys that they've been invested in for a little while, the Red Sox maybe are going to be more of a factor than we thought they were going to be. So we'll preview the Red Sox with Lou Merloni later. Also, it's Tuesday, so we'll get into County Sports Zone Radio with our buddy Wes Brown, and we'll talk to Patrick Stevens about the national championship game and the weekend that was in college lacrosse. So speaking of the national championship game, congratulations to UConn. What a story, on the local front, obviously, Cam Spencer. And it was funny because at one point, like I was there with John Colson was with me last night at Sports and Social, and he was like, dude, the story of the Spencers is like one of the great stories in local sports. And I've been trying to tell people this for a very long time. Did I know that Cam Spencer was going to go to UConn and become such a key cog for a team that would win another national title? Absolutely not. I thought he could play. I thought he could contribute. But, like, in many ways, I think it's fair to say they don't win the national title without Cam Spencer. They say that. If they didn't have Cam Spencer, they'd probably have somebody else. And I really do think that the biggest part of the story with UConn is coaching, is how insanely prepared they are, how many different things they're capable of doing, how they're always sharp out of timeouts. It's insane how good they are out of timeouts. Holy F. I know it seems like such a small thing. Like every team should be good out of a timeout. But we all know they're not. How many times do you watch teams turn the ball over out of timeouts? And my God, I'm not going to say the number is 0, but it feels like it's 0 for UConn. Always sharp out of timeouts. It's insanity, man. Double-digit scoring for Pat Spencer in every game in the tournament. Double-digit scoring with at least 8 rebounds in the last 3 games. It's an amazing story. It really is a truly amazing story. And yes, it's compounded by his brother, how both of those dudes went so overlooked. Pat had very little options for playing lacrosse. And very little options for playing basketball after that. And all he did was become one of the greatest lacrosse players of a modern era and find a way into the NBA. Cam had very few options for playing basketball. And all he did is continue to force his way up levels until he finally reached the pinnacle of the sport. And will have his own chance of finding his way into the NBA. It's an unbelievable story. And yeah, special for me, I've gotten to know those guys and have had the chance to call their games and have gotten to know their mom, Donna, who's, been wonderful to me over the years. Like, their competitiveness is second to none. There are some stories on Saturday at the late in the game that Cam was talking trash to Alabama fans, and I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, they are, we've talked about it with both of them. Like, they get into fights when they play basketball against each other just over the summer, hanging out. They get into fights. They're that competitive. They're that type of cat. And I don't want to make it seem like the entirety of the story for UConn is Cam Spencer. It's the most interesting part of it for us locally, obviously, is Cam Spencer. But Like last night, it looked like Purdue was going to have a shot to stay in that game and to be competitive because Zach Edey was hitting those short hooks one after another, and every time the ball was getting inside to him, he was finishing. But their guards never really got going, and he never really forced the issue. He never really took it to Klingon. He seemed too willing to just keep shooting those sort of, whether they were hooks or pushes, like to instead of forcing his way to the basket, it seemed like he was willing to
and trying to draw contact from Klingon.
Right, he never forced the issue. Now, what's his face fouled out?
Samson Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson, correct, fouled out. But he never really seemed to force the issue with Klingon and say, I'm going to go make them make calls. And although I had a ref who disagreed, that one, to me, was absolutely a moving screen. Like, and when he got away with that, I was like,
the one they didn't call.
The one they didn't call. And I was like,
Gene Stertro said it was he said it was legal.
I had a ref that was there with me last night too that said it was legal. So, you know what? I don't know. But it made me think maybe they're being a little beneficial to Zach Edey. Like maybe the star power of Zach Edey is relevant here, and they're going to be so even if it was legal, I think you see that screen a lot of times and you call it. And I would need more of the breakdown as to why it is legal, just because, again, I was running around the casino last night and was not able to focus on everything. But he just never seemed like he wanted to force the issue against Klingon and was willing to continue to settle. And at some point late in the first half, those shots stopped falling consistently. And when they did, it was like Purdue ran out of, well, we've tried the one thing we were going to try. You're like, maybe we should do something else. That's it. That's a list of things we got. And, save for a fleeting moment in the second half where they, got back within 10 or so. And you were like, all right, maybe they have a run in them, maybe. But the guards were never consistent enough to really believe that. And it just went the way that games go with UConn. Like, you can be competitive with UConn for a little while. And then you look up. I don't think that Purdue was, blown off the floor or anything like that.
Like UConn, they can go on 30-0 runs like they did against Illinois, or they
That's
can
true.
Do what they did against Alabama and what they did against Purdue.
It's kind of like
gradually
paper cut you to death.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's really to death.
5-0 run after 5-0 run, and
it's to death. It is it's not, hey, they happened to be leading when the game was ending. It's you just look up and you never were really in it. Yeah. You didn't lose by 50, but you never really were in it. And we'll talk about this with Patrick. My theory, because we've only seen this now 3 times in the last 35 years with the team going back-to-back. My theory is that this one is the most impressive of any of them because with Florida and with Duke, it was largely the same team back. It's a different era of college basketball. Actually, by the time it was Florida, it wasn't really a different era, but all of those guys just made the decision together, Noah and Horford and, who's the guard? Brewer. Was that the guard? Yeah, Corey Brewer, right? That was the guard from the Florida team. Those guys all made the decision that they were going to come back together to try for it again, and it paid off. This is so wildly different because it ain't that at all. It's a totally different team. And yet, look at where they are. In a way, that makes it more amazing because to me it's a testament to Dan Hurley and to his staff. It really is unbelievable. Truly an unbelievable accomplishment as UConn does indeed go back-to-back. All right, Sam Dykstra is going to join us in just a second here on GCR. We'll talk about those red-hot Norfolk Tides. Today's show is brought to you by Atman's Deli. Atman's Deli has a new location. They are now open in Harbor Point. And if you have not been yet, you don't know what you're missing. It's everything you loved about the original Atman's Deli, which, of course, is still open, but now modernized with a bar, a sports bar, a place for you to go hang out today while the baseball game's happening in the afternoon. Watch the game, enjoy that delicious food at Atman's, have a couple of beverages, take a half day, make a day out of it at Atman's Deli. It's Atman's Deli, but a sports bar. It's just a magical set of words. The corned beef, the soups, the desserts, the hand-rolled bagels, it's all there. atmansdeli.com in order to find daily specials. All right, so we know that there are historic numbers being put up by the Norfolk Tides, averaging over 11 runs per game. They've hit 29 home runs so far this season, more than twice as many as any other team in all of minor league baseball. Joining us now to give some context and explain what's going on in Norfolk. He, of course, covers prospects, the minors, everything happening at that level for MILB.com, MLB Pipeline. He is our friend Sam Dykstra, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Sam, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you as always, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Sam, it's tough for me to talk about this because I know the numbers that Norfolk are putting up are amazing, but at the same time, is it really amazing, or is it just, hey, this is what happens when you have Major League Baseball players facing minor league competition?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to weigh what is going on so far. You try not to get too caught up in a 9-game sample. And just to add further context to this, they played last week in Charlotte, which is one of the most hitter-friendly parks, certainly in the International League, and maybe even in all of AAA baseball, and that includes the PCL, which has some real launching pads. So I think they took advantage of that. But listen, you have to have the hitters take advantage of the hitting environment. And when you're batting Jackson Holliday in the leadoff spot, Connor Norby, Heston Kjerstad, Kobe Mayo, Kyle Stowers, I get it. There are a lot of people out there who are trying to say, like, this team could beat the White Sox. They could beat the A's. I'm not going to go that far. But all 5 of those guys have absolute bona fides to be in the major leagues. I was a little surprised, as I'm sure you guys were and many of your listeners, when Holliday was sent down. Mayo's certainly knocking on the door. Kjerstad would have been on an opening day roster anywhere else. I mean, it's a good problem for the O's to have, but it is a problem that they have for sure.
So I want to follow up on that sentence because I think we all would have agreed with the 4 of those. But are you of the belief that Kobe Mayo is he's ready now? He would be ready to compete at the major league level at this point?
I think he could do it. I think of that group, he's the one who probably needs the most seasoning. But what I really like about what Kobe Mayo does is he fits the modern game so well. He hits the ball hard. That is his number one asset. He also lifts the ball really well. So if you're hitting the ball hard, you're hitting it in the air, that's how you get extra base hits. That's how you get the slugging percentage. And those types of exit velocities are going to translate. Now, I think it's going to take some time to develop a little bit more of an approach. But the fact that it's playing right now, I think he could at least tread water at the major league level and continue to grow there if needed. But I don't think he needs to be pushed like somebody like Jackson Holliday, who needs to constantly be challenged.
Let's talk about these guys one by one if we could, Sam, because you bring up Holliday, and yes, particularly given the rules of the PPI program, I was stunned that Jackson Holliday was not on the opening day roster. Now, they do still have that. If that were to change this week, they could still take advantage of PPI, and, all's well that ends well, I guess. But the arguments that were given by the Orioles about hitting lefties and wanting him to play second base every day for a period of time, did any of those arguments hold water for you versus the common belief that everyone had that it was just, a forced attempt to get back to service time manipulation?
I think for me, the thing with Holliday, and you look at how much time he had at AAA last year, it was only 18 games. I don't know if I buy those specific reasons, specifically. It was interesting that they talked about him needing to hit left-handed pitching. What does he do? His first at-bat of the season, he homers off a lefty.
A lefty, yeah.
That was quite telling and quite poetic in its own way. I think he could handle second base at the major league level. But I think they're in a place now. You think back to where Gunnar Henderson, when he was called up a few years ago at the tail end of the year, they allowed him to grow into the game the Orioles can't really afford that right now. They're not trying to just give a spot to a kid who might have to hit 230 for a few weeks and by the end of July will be, at full stride. They want guys working to compete right now. I think Jackson Holliday could shorten that time span of needed adjustment, but I think they want him up when he's absolutely fully ready to hit 280, 290 in the majors right away. And you can make the argument that he's not quite there yet just because of how young he is. But at the other side, like, this is a guy who's been in major league clubhouses since he was, knee high to a bullfrog. I mean, he's comfortable in those environments. It's not going to take a long adjustment period. So I can see where they're coming from just a playing standpoint and an experience standpoint, but I would have liked to have seen him there on the opening day roster.
Sam Dykstra is with us here on GCR. Sam, I've made the argument a couple of times that, okay, if you weren't going to have Jackson Holliday up, why in all bloody hell wouldn't Connor Norby have been your opening day second baseman? Like, why go through this charade of bringing in Tony Kemp? With all due respect to the Kemp family, I don't think he's a bad guy, but there is just no world where it makes sense in the year of our Lord 2024 for Tony Kemp to be on a roster of a team that's trying to win a World Series. Why go through that instead of just letting Connor Norby be your second baseman? Now, you can argue, hey, well, what if he performs well? Now it's awkward for Jackson Holliday. Holy F, would you like to have that problem? Like, imagine thinking that having more good baseball players is some sort of problem. It's weirder to me that in order to allow Jackson Holliday to be playing second base at AAA, you've got Connor Norby running around in the outfield now and playing left field for AAA. Is there a belief that Connor Norby can't be a second baseman? Like, is there anything that I don't know about his defense that says he's just not good enough to play that key of a position? Is there any reason why the Orioles shouldn't have allowed Connor Norby the opportunity if it wasn't going to be Jackson Holliday?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like, what you were saying, and I am sympathetic to that idea of you bring in more veteran types. I mean, you look at who's played second base for them so far. It's Mateo. Westberg wasn't a prospect that long ago, but doesn't have the ceiling of these guys. It's a little easier to clear out space for those, and Tony Kemp, who was signed but not on a big deal by any means. With Norby, you want to find him a lane to consistent playing time if you can. If it's just going to be calling him up and then Holiday's going to be right behind him a month later, I mean, that's not fair to Norby, and it's not fair to Holiday in some aspects too. So I hear what you're saying. Like, you want as many good problems as you can have, but when the lane is there, I don't think Norby was going to be that great when he got called up. I don't think he's going to be a better option right now than a Mateo or a Westberg or a Kemp. He could be as the season goes on, but like right away, I don't think that's going to happen. So at least save yourself the awkwardness of pitting two prospects against each other and give the best one, the number one prospect in baseball, the clear lane to the job.
So then what is Connor Norby's path? Like, that really...
I know, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about that is, like, you put him in the outfield, there are 3 outfield spots. There are just more opportunities out there. I mean,
I hear you, but they can't get their outfield prospect. Yeah, they can't get Cowser or Kerstead on the field right now.
I know. It's a real problem. It really is. And the thing I keep coming back to is, I play video games. I simulate seasons. I love playing with that kind of stuff. And if you get good at it at a certain point, you're like, oh, I've got a 25-year-old wallowing in AAA. Like, what if this happened in real life? It's happening in real life to the Orioles. And at some point, you would think they have to cash in these chips. They did it with Corbin Burns in some way. Like, if Joey Ortiz was still on this team, it would be even more confusing. I think they're gearing up to be big-time buyers at the deadline. But there's going to be a couple months here where, as long as everybody's healthy, it's going to be a jam-packed depth chart. Well,
and look, I know that the old baseball adage, of course, is that these things have a tendency to work themselves out, right? And, like, this is a 162-game season, and guys get hurt and the whole thing. And that, to me, is why I'm not as fearful of making a move with a guy like Connor Norby. Like, I would just rather have better – these games matter, too, right now, right? Like, I would rather have somebody getting adjusted in the major league level, and we'll figure that out when we need to figure that out. But I do come back to, would his defense be good enough to, if there was no Jackson Holliday, would Connor Norby's defense at second base be good enough for him to be a major league second baseman?
I think it's passable, yeah. I mean, if you look at, like, the grades we have up on our site, it's 50s across the board. Would you like a 55 in there? Sure. Like, so at least he could be really banging down the door. I mean, Connor Norby, the reason why he's not a top 100 prospect, at least in our eyes, is he's just average, which is a good player to have as long as he doesn't have any significant deficiencies. And I don't think his glove is necessarily significant for him. It's not great at second base, but it's certainly passable. It would work there. Then, I just don't think he has that tool that's like clearly clearing space for it. If he was a surefire second baseman, then we probably wouldn't be talking about Jackson Holliday moving over to second. Maybe you keep Gunnar Henderson at third, Jackson Holliday at short, and Connor Norby is your second base. But that's not happening. It's just average at best, which makes the case all the harder.
Is Kobe Mayo a third baseman, or is his path ultimately going to have to be at first or as a designated hitter?
I think it's most likely going to be at first.
Yeah.
I think we get to maybe June, and there's a part there where Holliday is playing second and Mayo is at first in Baltimore. I really like Kobe Mayo's arm. I think it would really fit well at third base and could even fit in the outfield, the corner outfield spots if they wanted to try him there. But he is a big guy. He makes for a big target, 6'5". He's a below average runner, not going to have terrific range at third or first base for that matter. Stick him at first. Let him do what he does best, which is hit the baseball really hard, like we said earlier.
I guess that becomes troubling because, like, Ryan Mountcastle plays a good defensive first base, right? So it's another.
Yeah, I know, yeah, totally.
Like, boy, again, these are the problems that you want to have. These are the good problems to have. Let's talk about Kyle Stowers, Sam, because I don't know what to make of this kind of renaissance. Was it just, hey, we'll go back and we'll look, and last year was a blip on the radar, and what happened when he was called up the year before? It's inexplicable 10 years from now, or is this more like the, hey, he's 26 and he's getting to face AAA pitching, so of course he's mashing like this, but there's no real reason to believe that he's definitely a stud at the major league level. Like, what do we make of Kyle Stowers in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at what he's doing right now, the thing that pops to me even more than the 6 homers is the fact that he's only struck out 14.3% of the time. He's also only walked 2.4% of the time. So he's kind of getting a little swing happy, I think, and that's probably in part to prove that he can hit the ball hard and that he is major league ready after his call up last year and the performance he had earlier in his career. I think this is a case of being a 26-year-old. He should be in his prime. He kind of should be destroying AAA pitching. I mean, not necessarily to the point where he's plugging 872 over 8 games. That's even higher than anybody's expectations. But this is a guy who clearly should be getting major league at-bats somewhere, being a fourth outfielder for somebody. It's just those opportunities aren't there right now. Colton Cowser had such a strong spring and has a higher ceiling as a better overall hitter that space doesn't exist. Like you said earlier, injuries are going to happen. The O's are not immune to that by any means. Something's going to happen in that outfield, and Stowers will get his chance. But maybe at that point, the swing happy nature doesn't work as much anymore, and Heston Kjerstad's the guy who gets that opportunity. They have options. I wonder,
is he still a – we know that Kjerstad is a trade asset. We know that Cowser would be a trade asset. Is Stowers a trade asset, or – again, our team's just saying, no, we're not really all that interested in your 26-year-old that happens to be can he still be valuable in a trade, or is his value here while the others would be valuable in a trade?
The others would be more valuable in a trade to me because they are unproven at the major league level. So, yeah. Stowers, we have a record of what he can do at the majors. Maybe it would be different next time, given all the changes he's made and the performance he's put in, but we do know what that is. The others are more of a question mark, and that is a positive in their case. So you can project forward what they could look like. Stowers, we know. I mean, he could be moved in a deal for sure. It's just he's not going to be the Joey Ortiz replacement in a Corbin Burns deal. He's going to have to be surrounded by other actual prospects. By that, I mean rookie eligible types, guys with more projection, younger guys. But I mean, the time's going to come where his name is going to come up, and there might be a team that's like, hey, we're not trying to rebuild here. We're just trying to retool and add major league ready pieces, and that's where Stowers has at least some value.
So let me wrap with this, if I could, because for as much as we're talking about how many runs that Norfolk has scored, what we're not really talking about is that, they've almost needed to score all of those runs. It's hard for me. I know we want to believe in some of the next group of pitching, but it's hard for me to see it. Should there be any concern about the fact that they've given up a boatload of runs already this season as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that is part of the equation for sure. I am encouraged by what Cade Povich has done to this point. He's got a 0.82 ERA, struck out 14, walked only 3 in 11 innings. I think he could certainly contribute to Major League starting depth. Chase McDermott, not off to a really good start. Justin Armbruster, not off to a good start either. Those are the 3 arms on Norfolk that we have in our top 30. I think that's why you make a move for Burns, and that's why I think they are going to be big buyers at the trade deadline. Somebody asked me this the other day, like, what does this Norfolk lineup remind you of? And it reminds me of the Astros coming up. And the Astros thought they were going to have a lot of problems, and it was a lot of those homegrown guys. But one thing the Astros did really well, and we've seen that recently, is develop these really cheap young arms who are now, horses in their stables, these legitimate pieces of their rotation. Ronel Blanco's throwing a no-hitter, for crying out loud. I mean, that guy's been around forever and was signed really cheap. The Orioles don't have that. So I think they need to start turning some of these hitting chips into legit pitchers and not just a guy like Burns, who's a rental, some more long-term pieces to build around Grayson Rodriguez and the rest of that crew.
All right, Sam Dykstra, what can we plug for you? Where can people see you? Where can they hear you? All of that. What can we get the plugs in for?
Yeah, so you can read all my stuff on MLB.com/pipeline. I'm actually working on a story today naming the top 10 most loaded rosters in minor league baseball.
Huh.
You can guess who's number 1.
I wonder.
Not much of a tease on that one, but I'll be working on that. That'll be out, I think, tonight going into tomorrow. I co-host the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. That comes out every Friday. Tune into that. We are always talking about promotions, team promotions, player promotions, prospects, all that fun stuff every Friday. So tune into that.
At Sam Dykstra, MILB is how you follow him on Twitter. Sam, really appreciate the time this morning, man. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again.
Sam Dykstra, MLB Pipeline, MILB, and, of course, MLB Network contributor with us here on GCR. It is worth pointing out, as I'm, down on the pitching, and as he said, Cade Povich, 2 starts, 11 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, 3 walks, 14 strikeouts. That does shine in the midst of some of the other pitching problems that they've had throughout the system, but maybe Cade Povich is separating himself, because we were talking about this over the weekend, like, what if it continues? Cole Irvin, it's worth noting, and the Orioles can say, hey, we moved Corbin Burns because the priority is Corbin Burns. We would have moved Corbin Burns no matter who the option was. But there is a bit of a stark reality of the fact that they put Corbin Burns back in front of Cole Irvin. And maybe they would have done that for everyone because of the weird nature of the 2 off days being on Thursday and Monday. And so they would have said, dude, we don't care who it is. We moved Corbin Burns because of Corbin Burns. It has nothing to do with Cole Irvin. But it's interesting. There is another side of the equation. They move Corbin Burns back in front of Cole Irvin. And I am of the belief that when it comes to Cole Irvin, they're kind of stuck with this until John Means would be ready, or if at some point Kyle Bradish is, but our belief at this point is that Means would be ready before Bradish. Then you deal with is there a way still to help the bullpen? Because I just don't know. I do think it'd be nice for Cole Irvin to be that defined long man in the bullpen. But do you still need someone that can be more of a help in the back end of the bullpen? And Tyler Wells feels like the best bet to be that guy of this group. So are you waiting for Kyle Bradish in order to do that? Or if Tyler Wells just isn't performing at a high level even when John Means comes back, at some point do you consider letting Cade Povich start until Kyle Bradish would be ready, if he's going to be ready? Not a decision for today, but something to monitor. Today's show is also brought to you by the Stan the Fan Variety Hour, which returned yesterday. Stan, Ross, and Luke got together. Ross was very active on Twitter yesterday, getting after everybody who's ready to move on from Cedric Mullins and Austin Hayes.
Good.
Ross is all up in that ass. Like, Ross had no chill yesterday on Twitter. It was awesome. I'm like, look at Ross Grimsley mixing it up. I love it. I am living for that. Ross was right in there yesterday. So if you missed Stan, Ross, and Luke, and I have no doubt that included Ross explaining why it's absurd to talk about making those type of significant changes after 9 games. You can find that right now. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. Go to YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. When we come back in, it's time for County Sports Zone Radio. We'll do it next with Wes Brown's Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flight's Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well then, don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Jeremy Kahn here. The ultimate sports betting experience in Maryland is at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook. Join me at either location in Canton or in Towson and place your bets in person and be a part of the action. It's the best in-class sports wagering experience, complete with the ultimate TV package, ensuring you can catch every game all day, every day. Their state-of-the-art facilities bring Las Vegas energy right here to Maryland just in time for postseason football. So visit the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook in Canton and Towson and elevate your game day experience and hang out with me to bet, watch, and win at the Turtle.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
Back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. If you have not tried Goose Flight's Lager yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. It is delicious. It is wonderfully drinkable. And it goes to a good cause because $1.98 from every can sold goes to benefit the Goose Flights Foundation and the work they're doing to provide non-emergency medical transport for those in need. PressBoxOnline.com/GooseFlights is the website to find out everywhere in town where you can pick up a delicious and refreshing Goose Flights.
Not yet.
Okay, well, you inform me then.
Okay.
Very good. So what did you prepare?
What did I prepare?
Dynamite.
I guess nothing.
Dynamite.
Today.
Ravens, what they used to call the Liars Luncheon. The
yes.
Ravens pre-draft press conference is today. This used to be a really important day on the calendar for those of us in this business.
We still call it the Liars Luncheon, right? Or
I mean, I guess. I think
you don't call it that because you don't go. So you just,
no, it's a
just
step
out of
beyond.
mind.
I think more people have taken to my opinion of it, which is there's just no reason to give this. Like, it used to be kind of like we were all in on it. Like, hey, it's the Liars Luncheon, but you still felt like there could be value to certain things.
They're gonna tell us who they're gonna take at 30.
No, you knew better than that. You just still felt like if you asked the right question, you could get some sort of valuable answer. I feel like there are more of me at this point that just say, this is as performative gets, and so we just don't care. Look, the TV stations will still go. The Ravens will still put out lots of content. I'm trying to think about what could be relevant that could come out of this. I'm struggling with it.
I bet they'll be excited that Calvin Noy's back.
A year ago, it was a bad look for the Ravens because they got, like, aggressive with the questions about Lamar Jackson. Like, dude, this is I'm like, bro, chill. Like, y'all are in this position. This is the way it's going to be. If you just don't want to do press conferences, just don't do press conferences. Just say we're not doing it this year because we don't feel like talking about Lamar Jackson. Ultimately, all's well that ends well. If there's something relevant that could come out of it, maybe there could be a follow-up about Zay Flowers. Like, we've kind of allowed that to die, but I do still think it requires some finality from the Ravens. Like, the Ravens saying, well, we've done our investigation, and, you know, we feel as though there's nothing that occurred that was worth. I still think that's something that they need to be pressed about, is Zay Flowers. They might deflect again and say, you know, we're still in the fact-finding and just continue to hope that it goes away, that people stop asking. But I do think it requires someone. That's Jerry. It's Jerry. Is Jerry here or is he in Florida? Like, that's part of the problem. But I would like it to be Jerry because it seems like a lot of other people aren't willing to, like, I don't have the appetite for just doing it any longer. But somebody, and if it's not Jerry, it needs to be somebody else. Somebody has to ask, hey, have you closed your internal investigation?
Why can't it be you?
I'm just out. Also, isn't it happening while we're here?
Yeah. Well,
what time is it?
I guess we should have taken the show down there, right?
Yeah, I'm good. Not
is it 11? That would make sense, I guess.
I genuinely don't remember. I mean that. I just don't remember what time the luncheon is. But whatever time it is, I probably wasn't going to go anyway, to be honest. It's at noon, so it would have been very difficult for that to be the case. Is there anything else that demands? Yeah, I get it. Is there anything else that demands? I mean, I guess they'll have to answer about the offensive line, but they'll tell you that they love all the guys that are going to step in. They won't tell you who it would be, but they'll just name them all off. They'll be like, you know, we like Faalele, we like Voorhees, we like Cleveland, we like, I don't remember who else is on the roster at this point.
Been great.
Sala. Like, they'll just name them all and tell you they like them and that they could all be factors. So you won't really get an answer about that. I don't know what else there is. I really don't know what else there is that could be relevant that could be asked about at this point. But if there is something that's relevant, we'll react to it accordingly.
Wide receiver stuff, I guess? I don't know.
They're not going to tell you anything. They're going to tell you they like everybody in the draft. Like, the only thing that I used to be able to do would be listen closely. If someone asks a question and names prospects, and then in the answer, now it used to be Joe Ortiz. I don't even know who's going to be at the table this year. If somebody gives an answer where they name a name that wasn't in the question, that was always where I would say, file that away. Famously, I remember Lorenzo Taliaferro being one of those guys who, like, after that happened, I immediately turned to Ryan Shell and said, you better track down Lorenzo Taliaferro right now. And he was like, who is that? I'm like, he's about to be a Raven. And they're like, really? I'm like, trust me on this, bro. Like, somebody asked a question about the top running backs, and
they were like, oh, yeah, all those
guys. All those guys we love. Like, and I don't even remember who else were the running backs that year. And Lorenzo Taliaferro. And I was like, who? So yeah. So we'll monitor that and we'll react to it accordingly. Right now, let's react to County Sports Zone Radio. Joining us from countysports.zone, presented by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. He is our friend Wes Brown, and he's with us every Tuesday morning. Wes, good morning, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Back to action, obviously. Let's run through what were some of the big storylines on. Let's go to the private school side when it comes to lacrosse for the past week.
Yeah, so tons of games last week to kind of get back into action there. Boys Latin and Calvert Hall kind of had a thriller there with Boys Latin taking an 11-10 win. And then Gilman's just been dominating so far this month, beating John Carroll last time out 25-7. So some pretty big results there. Leading into the standings right now as they kind of get into conference play. McDonough, Boys Latin, Gilman, and then Spalding there at the top of the A conference.
You mentioned Spalding. They had a thriller too against Blakefield that they had to win in overtime. So a lot of good. I guess we still call this early season conference action. Maybe we're already moving towards the middle part of conference action, particularly in the A conference. So yeah, that's a look at the standings as you brought up with McDonough, Boys Latin, Gilman, and Spalding, and sort of staying on the MIAA front. Some stuff going on with some former athletes here in the state of Maryland.
Yeah. So obviously, in the IAAM there, Angel Reese announced her declaration to the WNBA. Nice kind of touch in her video there, giving props to Baltimore and then even Maryland for that short stint in helping raise her and grow her into the player. I'm sure she's going to be even more involved in the local scene, once she, does turn pro and has, the following there and, isn't necessarily stuck in LSU for most of the year. So going to be exciting to see what she does Baltimore wise. And then obviously last week we had the Stefan Diggs trade from the Good Counsel prospect. Kind of getting a fresh start moving from Buffalo to Houston, and then actually Houston, wiping out that contract for him. So he's going to be able to be a free agent after this year. So it'll give him an opportunity to, play on a new team with a high-powered offense and then kind of prove himself going into free agency next year.
One day the prophecy could be fulfilled that he ends up back here. One day, maybe we will see. All right, Wes, athlete of the week for this week.
Yeah, kind of a two-parter. Montgomery Blair on Saturday threw a combined no-hitter on the softball field. Sydney Humpert and Camille Wade. Pretty solid outing there, and the team's already up to a 5-0 start this season. So excited to see what they're able to do, and it seems like the no-hitters just keep coming across the state.
Right. It's starting to be very, very common. But yeah, Sydney Humpert and Camille Wade who combined for Montgomery Blair softball on their no-hitter. All right, Wes, let's get the rundown of everything that's going on moving forward and what everybody can find at County Sports Zone.
Yeah, so County Sports Zone has all the scores and schedules here across the state of Maryland. We've got MIAA, IAAM, lacrosse, baseball, and then obviously everything to do with the public schools. So super exciting stuff there as we run here the next month or so into the playoffs. And then obviously we have our CSE Pick'em with baseball that's been live, but now Girls Lacrosse is live. So we have it actually an IAAM slate for Wednesday. So people are able to go to the website and make their picks on who's going to win some of the top Girls Lacrosse games.
That's very cool. And, of course, it's all proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com, countysports.zone. And remind everybody on social media.
Yeah, County Sports Zone is at CSC Scores on Twitter and Instagram. You can find them on Facebook as well. And then I'm at W_Brown21.
Sounds great. Wes Brown, appreciate you as always, man. Thanks for spending a couple of minutes with us this morning. We'll talk again next Tuesday, all right?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Wes Brown, County Sports Zone Radio, countysports.zone every week. What happened there?
We're all good.
Yeah, I know, but I asked the question.
I was navigating around the County Sports Zone website, of course.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
It is.
But not great for on air. Not that part. Troubling. Perhaps we have a different computer for browsing, maybe. Like that one? Like, can we use the desktop for that?
I mean, we can use whatever we'd like.
What? I'm saying, can we make that standard protocol moving forward?
I mean, yeah, I don't think that'll happen again.
Because we're going to use the desktop for that moving forward? Okay,
yes.
all right, thank you. That's the part I was trying to get to. Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. Thanks again to Wes Brown and County Sports Zone Radio, again, brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right, hour number 1 just about in the book. Still to come today, Lou Merloni will join us to preview the Red Sox. Of course, the Orioles playing a matinee this afternoon. I saw somebody on Twitter asking how many teams do you think would be involved with 3 different opening days during the course of a season? Well, when you're the talk of baseball, like the Baltimore Orioles. It is weird. Like, I absolutely have this feeling that when you're the team that's already had your opening day and you got to go out and be a part of the festivities again, it's got to be annoying. Like, it's just got to be, like when they got to Pittsburgh last Friday, like, oh, we got to line up on the field again. We got to go through all the pomp and circumstances.
Probably, those are 2 of the cooler ballparks in baseball. I feel like that might.
I don't think I think that you're annoyed. I think you're annoyed by having to go through
the whole thing again?
The whole rigmarole. Like, we got to go like you're standing on the field for forever doing
nice
nothing.
Day-to-day.
I don't know what it's like in Boston.
I would imagine it might not be 70 like it is here.
Yeah, it's probably a bit windier up there, but like I just think there's an annoyance factor of, are we still doing this?
I think
we're still doing opening day. You're 2 weeks into the year. I don't think they have any interest in participating in those
Love
types
baseball.
of festivities. That's all well and good.
Get to do
I don't think they
all
want to
the
do
pageantry.
it. Nope. I think they're out on that.
60 degrees in Boston.
Okay, so that's pleasant. That's pleasant for baseball.
It is 11 mile per hour winds.
That part not surprising.
Actually, when the game starts, about 12.
Probably still. Winds. I wonder if you still have to wear the long sleeves today.
I think they will, actually. Wow, it's actually, the wind is going to, the temperature actually is going to go down. It's at 60 degrees right now. At first pitch, it'll be closer to 50.
You're definitely wearing the long sleeves today. Definitely wearing the long sleeves. Yep,
right,
I think they have zero interest in being a part of this.
And it snowed in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it was hailing on Friday. I'm sure they were really excited about being part of the opening day festivities. We will put the final touches on college basketball season and discuss another big weekend in college lacrosse. Some 1-goal wins for Hopkins and Maryland. And Towson continues their hot streak. We'll talk about all of that with Patrick Stevens next here on GCR. Aha. Maybe we turn the sound down and everything is a disaster. But that's not going to happen again because we're going to browse on this computer. And this will never be a problem again.
Hey, it's Jeremy Kahn. This postseason, bet in person at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks with locations in Canton and in Towson, and enjoy the best in-class sports wagering experience at their state-of-the-art facilities, bringing an unmatched sports betting thrill.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well, then don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis. AJMichaels.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
Into hour number 2 here on GCR. If you've not picked up this print issue of Press Box, you're into the final days that it is available. You need to get to your neighborhood Royal Farms right now, because by early next week, this one is gone in favor of a new print issue with Grayson Rodriguez on the cover. So go get that one right now or read it at PressBoxOnline.com before it is gone forever. All right. National championship game last night. Obviously, UConn makes it back-to-back somewhat comfortably over Purdue. Let's discuss that. Also, the weekend that was in college lacrosse. Joining us once again, he is our friend, college sports guru at Discourse, D1S Course on Twitter, Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine, among others. Mr. Patrick Stevens with us back once again here on GCR. Patrick, good morning, sir. As always, thank you for taking the time for us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Patrick, I know this is not unprecedented, of course, in the last 35 years. Duke's won back-to-back titles. Florida's won back-to-back titles. The idea that UConn lost its top 2 guys from a year ago and still was able to come back and, frankly, maybe be better. I think maybe not even maybe be better. They were definitely better this season en route to winning a national title. Is this maybe more impressive than perhaps the last couple of times that we have seen this occur?
You're talking about very different eras, right? Like, I mean, we could sit here and delve even further back if you want to, but you're dealing with almost an entirely different set of rules. Is it more impressive than Duke basically having a similar type of run, even if it was the same core? I don't think Florida was quite as dominant as those 2 teams, but still really impressive. And it was the same. And it was the same core group. I think that's a hard one to answer. I think there was a greater degree of difficulty for sure based on the roster changes and what have you. But everybody else was dealing with that too.
That's fair,
right? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
right.
Like if you're looking at who Duke was going up against in the early '90s.
Yeah, those are rosters loaded with would-be NBA players. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, they had to go through the Fab Five in their second title run. So I guess that wasn't a team that had the same guys back from the year before. But you kind of get the point. Like, it's just different, and there is definitely a level of respect that Connecticut warrants for the way that it went through this season. And I know I've used this phrase a number of times talking to you about them. The precision, the purpose, the intent that they played with was, I think that was what was impressive. And that is what we don't see very often in the college game, a group of guys that are like that. That's a once every 5 years type of thing. I mean, I think you would argue that certainly the first Villanova title team was like that. I think you would argue that the Louisville team that won a couple years before that was like that. I mean, I think you could argue that that's kind of a defining trait of 09 Carolina, of 02 Maryland even, like all those teams that in particular, teams that got close and then came back and did it the next year. I think for a team like UConn that lost so much, it was almost like it was a team that hadn't done it before in some ways. Obviously, a guy like a Newton and a guy like a Klingon in a larger role, but a lot different there. And so I think different is the word. I don't know.
That's
know
fair.
if more
Yeah.
impressive than those teams.
The story that I keep coming, I don't want to take anything away from the players on the floor, but how well coached they are is just so bonkers to me. And Patrick, there's no way that it's more evident to me than out of timeouts. And it seems like such a simple thing, but like I feel like UConn never screwed up out of a timeout. And in fairness, I did not watch nearly as much as you probably did or during the course of the season. But my God, were they sharp in those situations where coaching got involved.
Completely. And you start thinking about the coaches that have won national titles. And that's one of those common threads, right? Like you start to think about, well, who runs these great baseline out of bounds plays? Who runs these great sidelines out of bounds plays? Who has these awesome sets where you've had time to really think it up? And you're thinking about guys like Tony Bennett at Virginia, like the sideline and baseline out of bounds plays that Virginia runs. If they could just run their offense that way, they would be unstoppable, basically. Unfortunately, it's the normal half-court sets that get them. But you look at that, and you're 100% right. Like again, it comes back to precision and purpose. Everything is extremely. I hate to use the word because it's overused, but it's extremely intentional, and everything is so precise and on point. And you've seen interviews where Hurley will complain about, well, we didn't play well for this 4-minute stretch, and that they're up 20 with 4 minutes to go, and he's losing his mind. Well, that's a big part of it, right? Like I think it was at halftime of the Northwestern game, or maybe it was even the Stetson game, where he was irritated, even though they were already well on their way to a victory, and because that's just what their standard is, and that is something that obviously contributed to being able to roll through most of this season. I mean, you think about the only 3 losses. Unlike last year, like you said, like that was a team that had a real lull in January. This team didn't have anything resembling a lull over the course of the last 4 or 5 months.
And then of course the local angle to all of this with Cam Spencer, who I don't know that I would have guessed that he would have been such a significant cog to a national championship team, but boy was he ever a significant cog to this UConn team. And this really does go down as, like, between he and Pat, one of the truly great local sports stories of the last, frankly, 50 years.
Yeah, you kind of wonder, like, what sort of bragging rights are there? Like, Cam Spencer has a national title.
Correct.
Like, I mean, that family rivalry. I mean, I got to imagine that there's going to be a lot of barking, knowing the two of them in a friendly way, but also in a pointed way.
Boy, Patrick, knowing them, it's friendly sometimes, but like when they go up against each other, it is like I pray that we get to see it at some point in an NBA game, because there is a non-zero chance that they throw fists.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny. Like, I would tell you that having said that Pat is obviously a huge fan of his younger brother. I remember being at a lacrosse game at Loyola last year when Cam was playing at Rutgers, and I think they were playing Wisconsin, and they hit like a game-winning shot or whatever. And I didn't realize Pat was back there.
Yeah.
But he had the game on his phone, and there's suddenly screams out, something he probably shouldn't have screamed out in the press box. And it was because Rutgers had just hit a game-winning shot. Everybody kind of turns to it. It's like, sorry, I guess I shouldn't have done that, basically. But whatever. Sorry, not sorry, basically.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's certainly, that's one of the things where if you look back and you go, well, there's one of those stories where a guy that got a fifth year is certainly really, really able to take full advantage of it. Because there's an alternate universe where either last year's it, or he stays at Loyola the whole time, right? There's no pandemic or something like that. Who knows? But that fifth year, definitely Cam Spencer took full advantage of. All
right, before we move on from college basketball, obviously the other big story, of course, being the saga John Calipari, which I assume is ending with him at Arkansas. I know there was some, not so much clarity about that in the last 13 hours or so. Patrick, I guess I understand every layer of it. It's an opportunity for John Calipari to sort of get a fresh start at a program where you can absolutely win. I guess take me through what you make of the decision, if that indeed is how this plays out, and then what this maybe looks like for Kentucky, who I would presume should still be able to land just about whatever coach they want.
Well, I don't know if Kentucky gets an absolute, guy that has won a national title or something like that. Like, is it better to go and deal with that crucible or be essentially a deity at Baylor for all intents?
That's fair. That's fair. Right.
But there's a lot of really good coaches that would be extremely happy to take that job. I agree with a lot of folks that just kind of say this makes sense. Having read enough coming throughout this season, and even going back a ways, I remember there was a summer trip they took a couple years ago, and there was some little spat about Kentucky as a football school and as a basketball school, because they've obviously had more success in football of late. And Calipari was getting all riled up about this. And they were off like in the Virgin Islands or somewhere in the Caribbean or something. And it just felt like, dude, what are you doing here? Why are you trying to like involve yourself in this fight? And it just seemed like there was a disconnect even then. You look at how frustrated fans have become without really any postseason success since the pandemic. And I think too, when you're somebody, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but when you're somebody that likes to hear yourself talk a lot, and John Calipari likes to hear himself talk a lot, that wears people out after a while. Any coach, once they get to a certain point, you accumulate people that don't like you over time in any coaching job at any school.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're at Kentucky and you really haven't had the level of postseason success people want you to have had for the last 5 to 7 or 8 years, you're going to accumulate more of them. And when you talk a lot, you're going to irritate even more people than if you were just inclined to be quiet and not draw attention to yourself. So I think for Kentucky, you get out from having to pay a huge buyout. If you're Calipari, you get a fresh start. You're 65. This might not be your last contract, but it's probably your last serious stop. And if you're Arkansas, you're not going to have problems getting talent because you have money to buy players, and you have a coach that is very familiar with recruiting high-end level players to begin with. So I think everybody there wins to some extent. Who knows? Who knows exactly to what degree? But I think it was one. The easy common word to throw at that situation was stale. It had gotten stale, and he'd probably stayed 2 or 3 years too long at that point. So good for him for getting a fresh start. Everybody's going to be happy for now. And man, it would be awesome to be able to be at Rupp Arena when the Razorbacks go.
Oh boy, that is going to be something. That is going to be something. All right, let's switch to the lacrosse front. Patrick Stevens with us here on GCR. Struggle for Maryland against Ohio State. I guess the big story is Hopkins getting the win against Penn State, and once again, maybe everything's sort of shaping up for a massive Hopkins-Maryland game.
Yeah, I think that you look at what Hopkins did. They just kind of hung in there in really impressive fashion because they were getting stymied by Jack Brazion, the Penn State goalie, basically all the way through that game. Certainly through 3 quarters. He had all 16 of his saves in the first 3 quarters, and Chase Erlin played every bit as well as Brazion did. And then you look at the offensive end, and they got a really good game out of Dylan Bauer. Matt Collison gets the winner. They just sort of scratched their way back into it. And that's back-to-back weekends that I've watched Hopkins climb out of a deficit. And I do like the way they go about their business. I do think, last year, Hopkins was a whole is greater than the sum of the parts type of team. And this year, the sum of the parts is better. Like, I don't know if it's dramatically better, but it's definitely a little bit better. I think they're better in the cage. I would tell you a guy that has been playing extremely well for them on defense is Bowden Zulik, who has really just been a disruptive presence and made a huge play in overtime to sort of redirect. He did not deflect the pass, but certainly created an obstacle that led to a Penn State turnover. And so with Hopkins, I definitely come away impressed with just how they have been able to hang around and figure out a way to win, especially after that, 2 weeks of 1-goal losses there to Syracuse and Navy in the middle of March.
I think what jumps out to me on the local front is that separating Mount St. Mary's, everybody else is at least intriguing as we move into the late portion of the regular season, right? Like, I'm not saying that I think Loyola really can. It was a neat moment. Charlie Toomey becomes the all-time. I don't know, but I've also known better than to doubt Loyola, right, at the end of the season. Navy, they're hard to figure out because they get these great wins and they look not so great against other teams, but they're stockpiling wins. Towson is right there in the mix. Heck, even like UMBC is kind of in the mix, right?
Yeah, I first off, if you're Colgate or if you're Navy, you have firm control. Like if you win out, easier said than done. Obviously, with Army and Loyola the next couple weeks, and then finishing with Bucknell. But if you win out, you host the Patriot League tournament. That's simple. If you're Loyola, you basically, if you can pick up one more victory somewhere, and they probably will pick that up this weekend, I would guess. They're going to be a team that's going to be in the conference tournament, and we've seen them make a run, even as like a 4 or a 5 seed or whatever, to being able to make it to a Patriot League final. Towson, I mean, I think it's abundantly clear at this point that we're looking at a Towson, Delaware, and then everybody else in the CAA.
Right.
So, like, I think we're probably going to see Towson and Delaware play in back-to-back weekends at the end of the season. First game in the regular season at Delaware, and then probably in the conference title game. We've talked about Hopkins. Maryland obviously has figured things out enough. Maybe not. This is not going to remind you of 2022 at all. But this is a Maryland team that does kind of remind you of some of those early John Tillman teams that just sort of scrapped their way. And by the way, if Maryland gets the right set of results this weekend, if it wins and Michigan loses to Penn State, then Maryland's already guaranteed a bye into the Big Ten semifinals. So that's a good thing for them. And then, like you mentioned, UMBC in the top half of a league at this point that I think is up for grabs. And Bryant's probably the best team, but they beat Bryant already. So I think I don't know if there's sure things there beyond, Hopkins is going to be in the tournament. And Maryland probably will too. But there's certainly possibilities for everybody, which is a good spot to be sitting less than 4 weeks to Selection Sunday.
Yep, absolutely, to be in the mix. All right, Patrick, let's play our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams that this player has played for or managed? And again, we go back a little ways for a manager, two-time World Series champion, but someone whose career as a manager was from 67 to 88. 6 teams for Dick Williams.
Dick Williams is 6 teams. Okay, so Dick Williams was definitely let's knock out the team where he won the World Series. He was in Oakland.
Yes,
right?
won 2 World Series in 3 seasons in Oakland. Won 2 World Series.
Boston was where I believe he
That's
started.
where he began. That is correct.
He had a stint with the California Angels.
Sure did, from 74 to 76.
He was in San Diego and led them to a World Series.
82 to 85, absolutely.
He was in Montreal.
77 to 81. So all that's left is where he finished his career for 3 seasons, 86 to 88.
Seattle.
6 for 6. Brilliantly done on Dick Williams. Really, really well done. I would have gone, for the record, 3 for 6 on Dick Williams. That's incredible. Of course, also had a couple of stints playing for the Baltimore Orioles during his career as well.
That by the way makes him an awesome choice for the Orioles Hall of Fame square on Immaculate Grid.
Wait, was he in? I didn't even know he was in.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea. I guess that makes sense. He won 2 World Series.
You can use managers
right.
that played for a team.
I didn't realize that.
Like Tom Lasorda for the A's as an example.
What kind of score would Dick Williams get you for an Orioles Hall of Fame grid square?
Probably like about .06.
Yeah,
something
right.
Like that.
Something like that for sure. All right, let's go to a current player, but someone very much at the end of his career for our five-team guy. He is now on his 5th team this season. A 2-time All-Star and a World Series champion himself. Justin Turner is our 5-team guy.
Justin Turner, famously an Oriole at the
very much so. Began his career before all the facial hair was involved. Justin Turner, an Oriole.
The Mets,
of course.
The Dodgers,
most certainly.
Boston.
Yep.
And honestly, I don't know where he is.
Oh
so
man.
I'm just
okay.
I do not know where he's actually playing this year. So I'll throw a dart and say Arizona.
It is Toronto. He signed a 1-year, $13 million deal with the Blue Jays this year. And we'll go back a little ways for our 4-team guy, someone who randomly my son came home from school with a baseball card of this man and now talks to me about him all of the time. I don't know where the card came from. He is currently the hitting coach for the Atlanta Braves. Kevin Seitzer, a 2-time All-Star, is our 4-team guy.
Have you read the Jeff Pearlman, Bo Jackson book?
I've read some of it, yes.
There is a good Kevin Seitzer story in there.
I have to get to that then. I have to. I read through like Bo Jackson's background growing up and like some of the I read through that part of it. I did skip ahead a little bit to some of the Orioles stuff from The Catch because I don't know if I told you, but I actually helped Jeff a little bit with tracking down some guys. But I will have to go back. I will have to dive back in. It's one of those things where like it wasn't like I wanted to abandon it. It's just such a meaty read. Like it is such a lengthy book that Jeff Pearlman wrote about Bo Jackson that I probably read like 100 pages and hadn't made a dent at that point in the book.
You'll appreciate that story.
All right,
I suspect. So Kevin Seitzer, definitely a Royal.
Obviously, yes.
About Bo Jackson. He was definitely a Brewer.
Most certainly.
I believe he was in Cleveland.
He finished in Cleveland, so what you're missing is he started the 93 season somewhere.
93 season someplace.
Yes.
We're gonna throw another dart here. Was he in Atlanta?
Not in Atlanta. That is where he's coaching now, but never played in Atlanta. It was Oakland. For 73 games in 1993 was the other stint for Kevin Seitzer. What's on the docket for you this week, my friends?
We'll be in College Park on Saturday for Maryland and Rutgers.
Very good. At Discourse, D1 Course, of course, is how you follow him. Patrick Stevens, always appreciate you, sir. Let's talk again next Tuesday, all right?
Awesome. Take care.
That's Patrick Stevens with us, as he is every Tuesday here on GCR, talking college sports. Yeah, my son... I don't know where it came from, but he came home one day and he was like, look at this baseball card. I was like, yeah. And he said, Kevin Seitzer is a great player, right? And I didn't know how to tell him, like, Kevin Seitzer hasn't played in decades. Like, he clearly thinks that Kevin Seitzer
an active player?
is a current player.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, he was a good player. He was. And like every now and then we'll be talking about baseball and my son will casually bring up Kevin Seitzer. It'll just be like, I'll be talking about like great baseball players, like, I don't know, somehow we'll be up and looking at like the bobbleheads in my office and he'll be like, Cal Ripken, he was good. And Kevin Seitzer too, right? And I'm like, yeah, everybody's always talking about those two together. They're
Kevin
like
Seitzer.
Cal Ripken and Kevin Seitzer, the best players of a generation. It's just I don't want to ruin it for him.
Well, I think
I want
to. I think you're going to have to.
At some point, yes. But I want to encourage anything that allows him to love baseball at this moment because we're trying to get him to care He's playing for the Yard Goats this season. That's the name of his team that he's playing for.
Strong name.
Of course, I guess they go with all minor league names now, so they don't have a fight over somebody being the Yankees or the Orioles or anything like that. I think the Little League Council switched to all minor league teams, so like somebody could be the Mud Hens or the Lookouts or the, whatever, the Isotopes. You know what I mean?
Chattanooga Lookouts. That'd be good.
I think I don't remember what the other team names are. I only know that my older son is a Yard Goat this year, but I think the story is that they did away with replicating major league team names because there were legitimately like problems over kids not being happy about being a Yankee or like fighting about who gets to be on the Orioles, and so they just said,
is this something that we're gonna have to dive into deeper tomorrow, you think?
No, I don't think we need to have what's wrong with this country. I don't have any beef. I have no beef with it.
I'm surprised you don't, actually.
I really don't, because
like it feels...
I would be upset if my kid was playing on a Yankees or a Red Sox. Like, I would be upset about that.
I hope I still have it. I think I got like one of the, because I was on the Devil Rays one year.
Okay.
And like the old Devil Rays hat. I love that hat.
I had stopped playing baseball by the time you got to a point where they were giving team names. Like, we were just, was it Chapel Hill Rec Council or the Callenton, whatever, Nottingham, whatever we were. It was just Nottingham, or God, I can't even remember what the name of it was.
Nottingham Orange or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. Like I can't remember. And I was jealous of my friends who were in other rec councils where they had team names. Like, I was jealous of my friends who got to be, because as a kid at the time, my buddy John would put on like his Blue Jays hat. And I would be like, dude, you're a Blue Jay. Like, I would think that, like, somehow the Perry Hall Rec Council had, like, an association with the Blue Jays. Like, these soccer programs have with, like, youth teams.
Yeah.
Like, I would convince myself, because you're 8. You don't know any better. You're like, dude, you're in the pipeline. Like, they're looking at you. They think you could be a star, like, one day. So I would see my friends wearing the hats of other teams, and
I think
my
brother was on the Nationals one. Like, one year he was the Nationals.
They didn't exist at that age.
Yeah. Right. But I thought like that meant that like he had like a better chance because like, oh, they're like nearby, like
It's a great point. They're probably looking at you.
Yeah,
they're probably scouting the games.
I'm the
100%.
Mariners. They're not gonna know.
Yeah, they're not flying across the country to scout. The Mariners aren't doing it, but the Nationals, they'll. Mike Rizzo's hopping in his car and coming up here to take a look.
To Carroll County, want to see what's going on.
So no, I actually don't have any beef with this. I really don't. Like,
what would their travel team be? If
I don't know, man.
We were the Blue Sox.
We're just getting them adjusted to baseball right now, dog. Like, we're not there. So I'm fine with it being the minor league teams or whatever. Like, I actually think that's kind of smart, and they have cool hats.
Yeah.
Like, the Yard Goats hat is cool. It's a cool logo. Like. And it's silly for my son to say Yard Goats. He's like, that doesn't make sense. Who keeps a goat in the yard?
Fish hooks or something, yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm in on it. I think it's I do not have that's what's wrong with this country. Like, I actually think it's a creative, cool way to go about handling this. So I'm giving a thumbs up to the Carroll Manor Rec Council for coming up with this way of handling the team name situation. He's also wearing number 10, so a lot of pressure there. We had Adam called into the radio show the other day.
Can you let him know?
Well, I mean, look, I just had to tell him, like, you're not my favorite number 10 anymore. Like, it's just the way that it goes, dude. You're still you'll always be number 2. Like, you'll always have that. But sorry, man. Like, I'm going to associate somebody else with number 10. And if I'm being honest, I think he's better. Like, we are really struggling. Like, my 9-year-old son is still doing the bit where, like, he won't come greet the pop-up up here. Like, he wants to. Like, he's like catching it down by the ground or not catching it all. Like, I keep saying, dude, put your glove up here when I throw you a pop-up.
2 hands, gotta.
It's bad. I also haven't had as much time in the last week. We haven't been able to have a formal baseball practice since Easter at home. Like, he's had actual team practices, but I've been working 3 jobs every day since then, so I just haven't.
If he doesn't make it,
it's on me, 100%. This is going to be my failure, and frankly, we'll blame Stevenson. We'll blame Loyola and the casino and 105.7 The Fan. And
it is their fault.
Yeah, it's not on me. It's on them. Archbishop Spalding. Now you got to give him a free scholarship. That's the way it
So maybe
goes.
it'll work out, yeah.
Sorry. I would have made him a baseball star, but you needed to have me, so he's going to have to go to school for free. I don't think I could drive him to Spalding every day. I think that would be a bit much. But I do love Spalding. It's a great institution. It'd be wonderful if it could work out, but, man, that would be a haul. Going to need that bridge fixed if that's going to be a possibility, because the traffic getting to Spalding recently has been.
By the time, you think?
I would like to hope. That by that point that's the case. Although he's in third grade right now. Yeah, I'd like to hope. And he wouldn't be able to go there. Does Spalding do middle school, or they just do high school? I don't know. What are you talking? We're spending way too much time on this topic.
Call them real quick.
Yeah, check in. Got to get to the bottom of this. Hey, man, every time I just say the words Ruth's Chris, I start to feel something. It just does something to me, because I hear the sizzle of the plate. I smell that delicious steak being brought to my table. Whether you're celebrating a milestone, entertaining clients, or even if all you're doing is just enjoying a well-deserved date night or some sort of night out with friends, count on Ruth's Chris to deliver to you the finest steaks, the best service, and a level of hospitality that has made them one of the most revered names in steak since 1965. Make your reservation now at ruthschris.com. All right, we had to do this a little bit earlier on today because of all of the opening day festivities that they're a part of. But we had the opportunity to catch up with former Red Sox. Is it former Red Sox or former Red Sox?
Because I was typing it up and I was trying to figure out. I was like, do I say?
I guess you would say
Sox?
former Red Sox.
I just wrote former MLB-er.
Former Red Sox infielder would be the way of saying it.
Yes.
Lou Merloni, who's now part of their TV crew right here on GCR. It is opening day today in Boston, and the Orioles are opening up a 3-game set against the Red Sox. Joining us now to preview the Sox, who are off to a hot start. He is former infielder, current analyst for Nesson. He is Mr. Lou Merloni, and he's back with us on GCR. Lou, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to catch up, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Oh, anytime, man. It's always good. A little home opener for the Sox.
I know.
Late home opener.
Yeah, really late home opener. I was so confused by this, but the West Coast swing. And I know that, the hot start, and part of it is, facing, the right opponents in some cases, right? Everybody gets help by facing the Athletics and the Angels this year. But what else has gone particularly right so far that the Red Sox are off to this hot start?
Yeah, there's no question the pitching. There was a huge question mark coming in. Very concerned with the depth. A lot of people I felt like Jordan Montgomery should have been here.
Yeah.
They should have went out and added starters given the issues they had last year. And the biggest issue of the fact that they were questioning the depth was that also on the back end of the rotation, we were questioning whether these guys were starters or not. Cutter Crawford last year came on and had a good year, but he kind of averaged 4 2/3. So we're trying to see if he can kind of be a guy that can give you 5 or 6 innings. And then Tanner Houck and Garrett Whitlock are two guys that you're not quite sure if they were relievers or starters. So not only was there a lack of depth, but in the rotation there was question marks on the back end. But first 2 times through, they've been really good. Tanner Houck has been fantastic, So rotation ERA, I think they lead baseball in that. So they've thrown the ball really, really well, and that's been the biggest question coming into the year and one of the reasons why they're off to a hot start.
Obviously, it's Bayo as well as Pivetta and Crawford this week against the Orioles. Lou, are these definitive answers, or is that, hey, again, they face the right competition so far, let's continue to monitor that in the coming weeks?
Oh, yeah, no question about it. It's still like 2 times through, and you just sort of hold your breath, for the 3rd time through, and not just for the injury concerns, which is going around baseball, but just the performance part of it. It's nice to, even if you're good for, like a month or so, you still want to see if these guys, what they're like. Can they handle 28 starts, 30 starts? So will they wear down? So there's still a ton of question marks, but at the same point, you still sit back and enjoy the first 2 times through. It's been fun to watch.
What's gotten into Tyler O'Neill?
He's healthy. I think he's comfortable. Injuries have been a concern. Obviously, there was a great year out in St. Louis a couple years ago, and then there's been nothing but injuries ever since. There was some issues, right? There's questions last year, and the manager and him getting into it about hustle and everything else. So I just think the change of scenery. He walked in here, immediately took a leadership role. He got very comfortable early on, and so far he's healthy, like I said. So he's been fantastic. He slides into that 3 hole now with Story out, but he's been really good for them.
What it feels like otherwise the bats. Yeah, I mean Duran's off to a great start, true, but like, does it feel like the bats still need to pick things up a little bit?
Well, I'm sorry, say that again.
I know Duran is also off to a great start, but other than those two, is it a case of like the bats still have some work to do to pick things up?
Yeah, they do. And you know, it's as much as like you go out and you play out in that West Coast and, you know, competition maybe not be there. Number one, Seattle, you know, and I know that second time through they didn't look good, but I still think they had one of the best rotations in baseball with some of those young arms they have on top of that rotation. And when you play in Seattle and Oakland, they got to be two of the worst hitting ballparks in the country.
Right.
So it's, you know, and then they kind of rolled into Anaheim and hit 9 home runs. So I think the bats will come around. I know, you know, Devers kind of had a couple days off. He's dealing with a left shoulder. Kind of that was bothering me. Just 2 days off in Seattle, and I still think there's an adjustment period. He doesn't quite look the same yet because he was locked in camp and first couple days in Seattle. So, but the bats I think will come around. You know, you just got to get out of those places like Seattle and Oakland. They're never fun to hit there.
Lou Merloni from Nesson with us here on GCR. Orioles Red Sox coming up today at 2:00. Lou, it's a fascinating time, right? I remember talking to Will Middlebrooks a couple weeks ago, and it felt like you brought up the Jordan Montgomery thing. It felt like there was a lot of frustration in Boston with ownership and the direction of this team. They get off to this hot start. Where's the line between, all right, let's let these young guys cook and see what might be here, versus, no, we still don't think this group on the whole is good enough, and that ownership did not do a good enough job during the course of the offseason?
Yeah, it's like fans are watching it with mixed emotion because I think they want the Red Sox to win. They like the quality that they're seeing the first 10 games. It's fun games, but at the same point, they also almost don't want to enjoy it too much because they're still mad at ownership. You know, they're still mad. It's like, you know, this team may be good enough that you should have invested in. You know, and it's one of those things. You know. Because it's just, you know, when the season ended, you know, the Red Sox had like a 3.5-man rotation, a 3-man rotation. They're doing 2 openers for like 2-3 months. And they just died down the stretch. You know, they finished 12-24 because even their bullpen that was good was worn out because of it. So immediately in the offseason, it was, we need 2 starters. Like, we need to go get 2 starters. And everybody's like, okay, everyone's on board. You know, an owner dropped a full throttle off season. So everyone just thought they were going to buy in. And instead, you know, James Paxton walked out the door to go to L.A. You traded Chris Sale for Vaughn Grissom down to Atlanta, and you brought in Giolito, who, you know, was giving you innings the last couple of years, but not very quality. So it was like, hold on, I think we're down an arm. How did this work? And then he got hurt in camp. So it was sort of like, we're right back to where we were again, hoping that these guys that we're not sure if they're relievers or starters can be starters. So it just left them very, very thin. And I think fans, as much as they're enjoying the start, are still mad at ownership, and it's almost like if this team wins, they don't want them to feel like, see, we made the right call. You know,
it's so weird.
We want you to spend. Let's go.
That is such a weird feeling of like, yeah, we want the team to win, but like also at the same time, we don't want the team to win. I say it this way: if this were to sustain, right, like if the Red Sox were to remain competitive, do you feel like that investment would come in June, July, ahead of the trade deadline? That ownership would say, hey, we kind of, maybe we knew a little bit what we were doing with these young guys, and we will be willing to fortify when we get that point.
You know, that's the biggest question, because I felt like that should have been the case last year.
Yeah.
You know, last year they were a game out of the playoffs at the end of July. It was obvious that they needed a starter just to survive and to try to stay in this thing. And to me, as a former player, it's like, you know, I work all winter, I work all camp, I work for 4 months. And if we're in a position that it's your job to do some work, it's your job to support me, you know, and it didn't happen. They picked up Luis Arias, second baseman.
Right.
They didn't even pick up an arm.
Right.
And they just left them hung and dry, you know, high and dry. And the question is, like, how do they feel about this team? You know, I mean, if they get in that same spot, do you have to be 6 games in the playoffs for them to actually maybe trade away a few of the young guys, or is it still all about the futures? It's still all about the next 2 or 3 years and not this one. So that's a wait and see. But obviously, I'd see them mad.
I got to be honest with you. Down here in Baltimore, we don't feel all that bad. We just don't. It's hard for us to have too much sympathy about this, considering what the Red Sox have been for such a long time and what the Orioles, frankly, have been for such a long time. And I wanted to spend a couple minutes talking to you about the Orioles, Lou, because, you know, it's been an up and down start, and, you know, 5-4. The bats haven't really come to life. They faced a lot of lefties so far. But what you see as far as the talent that's there and what's still coming for the Orioles.
Yeah.
How genuinely do you look at this group and believe, hey, with the Corbin Burns at the top, this is a group that really can compete to win a World Series at this point?
Yeah, no, they're my favorites to win the American League East. I don't know why people keep talking about the Yankees. I know they're off to a good start, but they don't have the pitching. I don't think long term. And to me, the Orioles are the scariest team in baseball, and not just for this year, but moving forward. I don't think you trade for Corbin Burns if you don't have a change in ownership. If you don't have a change in ownership, you're not going to trade prospects away for a guy that you're not going to spend money on. But now with the change of ownership, obviously, we're going to spend money. We're going to try to keep Corbin Burns. Your CBT is at about $90 million. You could add $140 million and still be under. That is scary with the prospects. You trade away a prospect or two because they're so deep, and now all of a sudden you start loading up on high-priced veterans that are legit. Like maybe we did a few years back with a guy like Chris Sale. So it's a scary, scary team. It's a young team. It's a fun team to watch. And to be honest with you, I wish they were in a different division.
I mean, we kind of do, too, for what it's worth. We wouldn't mind being in the AL Central, for example,
Exactly.
and make life a little bit easier at that point. Lou, to follow up on it, I know this week, it's a big week because the Red Sox are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the 04 champions, and I know you weren't on that roster, but you, of course, were there for much of the build and for the teams that led the way to that team winning. I wonder, in talking to those guys, the sense that you have, because this is what we were feeling a year ago, the Orioles having the disappointment of winning 101 games but then coming short. How important was it to those guys, what you guys had gone through in the years leading up to that, and the disappointment, obviously, and Aaron Boone, and maybe that's a name that you your skin crawls when I say it, but how much did that impact what ultimately happened in 2004?
Well, first off, you missed Aaron's middle name.
Aaron effing Boone, right? Of course. So, yeah, we're not allowed to say that one.
Yeah, and you're just rubbing salt in the wound.
I'm sorry.
My last year here was 03, but that's okay. I'll let that one slide.
I'm sorry.
A lot of people do say that 04 would never would have happened if it wasn't for 03. That disappointment with Boone hitting that home run, and it just sort of drove them to be like, we need to go get Keith Falk, we need to go get Kurt Schilling, and sort of like you guys saw, we need to go get Corbin Burns. And have Grayson Rodriguez be the guy right behind him, and all these other guys you have. So it hurt, like that year in 03. But in 04, you talk to these guys, and a lot of it has to do with what happened in 03 kind of drove them to it. And that you guys did such a young group that it's good to kind of get there and experience it. People always talk about the game speeding up. It's not about the game, slowing the game down. It's not that. It's more of not letting the game speed up on you. And the more experience you get in those situations, you learn from it. You remember it. You remember the feeling of walking off the field and not celebrating. And I just think it kind of drives you, and hopefully it drives an organization to go and do whatever it takes to put you over the top.
From your lips to God's ears, man, because that's exactly what we're hoping for here. Lou, before I let you go, because you brought him up, I know Kurt's not there this week. Is that reparable at all, or is it past that with the players and the fans? Where, after what happened this offseason, can that relationship ever be repaired?
I think that's between Kurt and Tim's family.
Yeah.
Whether it can be or not, and people that are close to Wakey, whether it can be or not. There's a lot of people who knew about it. I found out, we all knew what his wife was going through with cancer, diagnosed about a year and a half, and we all knew it wasn't going to be a good ending. And Tim, it was probably 2 weeks of diagnosis when he passed away, which shocked everybody. Wow. And it was so quick that it was like, family doesn't know. And so everybody kind of hit it. Nobody really talked about it. And for it to come out like that, I think really upset a lot of former teammates, a lot of people close to Tim. And like I said, as far as that, whether people accept it or not, that's an individual thing. But I think that's more about Kurt and his family, and maybe they can resolve that. Hopefully, maybe they have. I don't know.
And everybody else will take their cues from there. And I understand that. And that's certainly the respect that Tim Wakefield deserves. And look, obviously, we don't love the Red Sox down here, but certainly for all you guys who love Tim and Tim's family, we are thinking about you as just awful. A horrendous story for him and his wife. I can't fathom what they all have gone through. So our love to everybody who loved Tim Wakefield. Lou Merloni, I know it's an exciting day in Boston, and hopefully for our sake, it's not as an exciting day by the time we get to about 5 o'clock today. But always appreciate you. At Lou Merloni on Twitter is how you can follow him, and, of course, Nesson up there in Boston. Lou, thank you for spending some time with us this morning, man. We really appreciate it. Happy opening day, all right?
Yeah, you too. Anytime. And enjoy that team. It's a lot of fun.
No doubt.
A lot of fun to watch.
Sure is. Well, when they're hitting it is, anyway. But appreciate Lou Merloni taking the time for us. Again, the Red Sox are celebrating the 20th anniversary of that 2004 team this week. So on top of all of the other opening day pomp and circumstances, there will be that. I guess Pedro's not there, but he was Pedro was there for events this week, but he had to leave because he's got TBS tonight. I would have liked to have thought that maybe TBS would have been willing to work with him for that.
Or maybe he just really wanted to.
I don't know. Manny Ramirez will be there, but Kurt Schilling will not because he's garbage. He is a garbage human being. We still need to get a tidbit and tubular as we wind things down. Oh, you know what? I'll go ahead and do, since you've got tidbit. There were 2 sports. I did not get to finish trivia last night because I had to head down to Sports and Social. But it did pop in, and I got 2 sports questions before I had to duck out. The first would be, I gave this, you know who was at Sports and Social last night was our buddy Ben from the radio station. Ben Hall was over there. It was cool to hang out with Ben. I gave this one to him. He struggled a bit with it. I struggled a bit with it, but I did end up getting all 3. I did go 3 for 3 on it, but it took me a second. In the last 15 years, there have been 3 undefeated teams in the regular season in men's college basketball. 3 teams have had undefeated regular seasons in men's college hoops in the last 15 years. Who are the 3?
The last 15 years?
Yes.
Undefeated regular seasons.
Yes.
Wichita State?
Wichita State, indeed. They lost in the second round to Kentucky, right, in the NCAA tournament.
And I believe one of the other undefeated regular seasons was Kentucky?
Kentucky with Anthony Davis, of course, made it all the way to the Final Four and then lost to Wisconsin.
In the last 15 years? Mm-hmm. Who was the other one to have an undefeated regular season? Kentucky?
I believe they gave
Wichita
us
State.
I believe they gave us the year.
Oh, they did.
So if you would like, I would tell you it was the 2020-2021 post-COVID season.
2021, someone went undefeated in the regular
Someone
season?
had an undefeated regular season.
Why do I not remember it? So it had to be a mid-major? Oh, man. I feel like it was a Texas school. Was it Stephen F. Austin?
Certainly was not.
Darn it.
More prominent than that. Remember, this was a shorter regular season because they didn't get to play as many games coming out of COVID.
Why can I not remember this? They must have undefeated regular season, so they didn't make the tournament, maybe? Like, did they lose in the...
They went undefeated in the regular season. Oh, you said they could lose in their conference tournament.
It was a mid.
I will tell you they made the NCAA tournament.
So it wasn't a mid-major? Or maybe it was. Okay, so it wasn't a power... Was it a Power 6? I don't know why I can't remember
If
this
I tell
at all.
you that
Baylor.
it's not Baylor. They did win the national championship that year.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
what was the other side of the national championship?
Oh, okay. Gonzaga.
So
they went undefeated.
They absolutely went undefeated that year. Yep, 100%. It was a big storyline going into the title game. That one was the one I got first because that one was the obvious one. It actually took me a second.
No memory of
it
Gonzaga
took me a second to
being
remember Wichita State and Kentucky, but we did go 3 for 3 on that one.
Man.
But everybody else, I gave it to a few folks at the casino last night, and they struggled with it. We've got some regulars now that are like hardcore hoops fans. That whenever I do trivia, they're like, "Bro, you should give that one to me." I'm like, "All right, well, I got a ball buster for you." And even my hardcore guys were struggling with it last night. The other one, name the 3 cities that the Braves have played in. They've called home. Yeah, Boston, correct.
Atlanta.
Yep. No, you don't remember?
The blank Braves. Not Cleveland. Unless that eyebrow? Is that good? Good eyebrow?
I'm not giving you anything, dog. You got to guess.
When did they get to Atlanta?
They had to be there 50 years ago because remember Hank Aaron, the 50th anniversary of the home run.
So before the 70s.
But I don't know that it was much before. I don't know.
Man, why can't I remember? They were always the Braves?
The question wouldn't work if it was.
Were they? Yeah, I feel like everyone's been in Philly maybe at some point. The Philly Braves? No, I don't think that was it.
66 was when the Braves moved to Atlanta.
For Atlanta, because they were in Boston first, right?
I mean, you didn't get this information in trivia, but I'll tell you, yes, they were first in Boston.
Man, I have no idea. I feel like they wouldn't have gone down that far down I-95 straight to Atlanta. Like, there was a stop in between Boston and Atlanta. Let's go with I cannot think of. Let's go Montreal. Not on I-95.
You think the Milwaukee is the other home of the Braves.
Braves.
Yeah, the Milwaukee was the other home of the Braves.
What years were that?
Well, it ended in 66. I know that. Jesus. They were the Milwaukee Braves from 53 to 65.
So I went 2 for 3 twice. Darn.
65. Yep. But he would have gotten points because they were both.
They were both.
You could get points for every correct answer, but you would not have gotten all the points.
Did you get that one?
Yes, most certainly did. All right, we'll come back in. Tidbit and Tubi to wrap it up. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Whether you're celebrating a special milestone, entertaining clients, or simply enjoying a night out, count on Ruth's Chris to deliver you the finest steaks, the best service, and a level of hospitality that has made Ruth's Chris one of the most revered names in steaks since 1965. Make your reservation now at ruthschris.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and on the cover we look at the promise of spring for the Baltimore Orioles as Todd Karpovich and others shine the light on the team's hopes to take the next step towards championship contention and what reinforcements could still be coming. Plus, Pressbox personalities offer suggestions to David Rubenstein about stewarding the franchise. Also inside, Bo Smolka on how the Ravens defense could evolve with new coordinator Zach Orr. And we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's programs across the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here. Did the Cubs really blow an 8-0 lead last night, the Padres?
I believe that is, the final score indicates that is correct. Yeah.
Whew. That is rough. That's rough. All right, let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. They are proud sponsors of County Sports Zone, countysports.zone, for all of the latest in spring high school sports, boys and girls lacrosse, as well as baseball and softball. Countysports.zone has scores, schedules, rankings. You can play pick'em all right there, countysports.zone. Brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com.
Also across baseball yesterday, Ellie De La Cruz became, in the StatCast era, he became the first player to hit a 450-foot homer and have an inside-the-park home run in the same game.
How about that?
Also his first home runs of the season, as Ellie De La Cruz is pretty exciting for the Reds, helping Graham Ashcraft get a win, which I needed for my fantasy team. So shout out to Ellie and the Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, okay, but the inside-the-park homer should have been a single.
I mean,
center fielder just dove and
missed it.
Yeah, I know, but it was a single. It wasn't
inside the park home run.
It wasn't like I like inside the park home runs when they're in the gap, right? And you're like, hey, you deserved extra bases. You just got extra bases.
Well, what about Trey Mancini got an inside the park home run?
God got involved in that one.
I agree, but
Go ahead, come
on. We mentioned Ronel Blanco earlier in the show. He had 6 no-hit innings to start the game against the Rangers on Sunday night. He became the
By the way, it
third.
also needed the relay throw to bounce off of the mound. Because
it's not an error on the fielder.
Because there was a chance that he was going to be. Ellie De La Cruz is fast.
Who's the error on in that play?
I'm trying to hang on a second.
I guess. Yeah.
I'm rewatching it right now. The right fielder from Milwaukee came over and got the ball, threw it into, I think that's the second baseman, and then the second baseman hit the mound. So they're not giving him an error, and I don't know. The problem is you could never know, but he was laboring a little bit coming around third base.
Yeah, Ellie was?
Yeah.
I mean, it was still 15 seconds? It was.
Yeah. By his standards.
By his standards.
They
probably could have been a little faster.
They cut to a shot of him coming around the bag, and you're like, oh, yeah. All right, go ahead.
So Ronel Blanco, the third pitcher in the modern era, since 1960, 61. Since 1961, he is the third pitcher to have 1 or 0 hits allowed total across 15 innings pitched in a 2-outing span. So in back-to-back starts, he is the third pitcher since 1961 to do this. He was the 4. He's the 10th ever to do it. But let's see if you can name the 2 guys that have done it since 1961.
So obviously these are guys that threw no-hitters.
Mm-hmm.
So this, I don't know when because Johnny Vandermeer is the only guy that ever threw back-to-back
no-hitters.
He
was 1938.
Okay, I could not have told you that.
Years for this question: 1977.
Okay.
In 2015.
So I'll try Nolan Ryan.
Not Nolan Ryan. Not on this list.
2015, 1977. 2015 Scherzer?
It was indeed Max Scherzer. 1 hit allowed across 15 innings in back-to-back starts.
No-hitter in 1977. And it's not Nolan Ryan. Man, a no-hitter in 1977. Denny McLain.
Not McLain.
Jack Morris.
Not Jack Morris.
Bert Blyleven.
Not Blyleven. He was a Cleveland baseball player. This is his last season. He's most known for being on another team, but he did this with Cleveland.
Eckersley?
Dennis Eckersley.
It's so fun. I associate Eckersley so much with being a reliever, right? Because he ended up being dominant at the end of his career. He was MVP and Cy Young winner one year. But yeah. I mean, I guess I just didn't know that Dennis Eckersley threw a no-hitter.
Some other fun names on this list. In 1960, Don Cardwell did this.
Okay.
1944, Jim Tobin.
Okay, I'll let you know when I've heard of one of these people.
Of course, Johnny Vandermeer, 1938, 1925.
We only know Johnny Vandermeer because he's the guy that threw back-to-back no-hitters.
Dazzy Vance.
I did not know Dazzy Vance.
Howard Emke, 1923, and then also in
Maybe
1904.
I did know Dazzy Vance. I at least heard his name before.
In 1904, the first to do this, Cy Young.
I guess I've heard of him. I guess I'm familiar with his work.
And then one more. This comes from @StatsByWill on Twitter. If it felt like it was kind of lesser close games in the NCAA tournament, you would be right. It was the second highest scoring margin in NCAA tournament history with 14.4 points per game, the average.
And yet I still wept during one shining moment.
You did?
Still, actually, I was in the car. I was in the car, and I was like, oh, I forgot to stay for one shining moment.
It is 2.7 points above the 10-year average over the last 10 years in the tournament. 37% of games were within 9 points. The average of the last 10 years was 48% of games being less than 9 points. And also,
I would say it was not. You know, it's weird, right? Because like, what do you watch the tournament for?
Mm-hmm.
And for so many people, you watch the tournament for the first weekend, right? Like, and so the first weekend maybe was a little bit of a letdown because you had Oakland, and Oakland was awesome. But like, you know,
it was also the first tournament since 1994 without any game being decided by exactly 1 point.
Wow, there wasn't a single 1 point game. How about that?
And it's happened every year since '94.
How about that? All right, very good. That's it.
I'll do one more since
for
I forgot
God's
to do it.
sakes.
It's only 12:01. We got time. Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah, but we could just end.
Yeah.
Like the show is only scheduled for 10 to 12. It'd be nice if sometime we.
Craig Kimbrell got
Kimbrell.
Yeah, I'll have to work on him.
Oh, it's tough.
Got the save Friday for the Orioles. Became the 8th team that he ever recorded a save for.
What are we doing? The Patrick Stevens game?
No. Yeah, we could, I guess. But he becomes also the 8th player to record a save with 8 different teams.
Oh God.
So let's see how many of if any. I mean, there's. Yeah, it's a tough list. I want to see how many you can name. 8 players have recorded a save.
8 or more teams.
3 players have recorded a save with 9 different teams.
Really?
Yeah.
Man. Wow. Fernando Rodney.
Fernando Rodney has recorded a save with 9 different teams.
How about John Franco? No, he was mostly with the Mets. No. Yeah, what am I doing? How about K-Rod?
No, not K-Rod.
Oh, man, we might be in trouble. 8 teams. Or did Randy Myers get to 8 teams?
He did not.
How about Lee Smith?
Lee Smith did get to 8 teams.
Including the Orioles. Hey. 8 is so many. 8. Like everybody that comes to mind, I'm like 8. I don't think
I
there
have
was
to look
8.
up these guys to figure out what's the best way to give a hint for some of them.
How many of these guys are there?
There's 8 of them.
Jesus Christ. Troy Percival. I don't think he had 8 teams.
There's a guy with. Let me give it
John Wetland.
No, not John Wetland. There's a guy with Troy in his name.
Guy with Troy in his name. Oh, LaTroy Hawkins.
LaTroy Hawkins pitched for 8 different teams and recorded a save with 8 different teams.
All right. Eddie Guardado.
No.
Rich Garces.
No. There's a guy named Rich. He's known by his nickname, though.
Goose Gossage.
Goose Gossage. 9 different teams to record a save with.
I didn't realize it was 9 for Goose Gossage either. How about Doug Jones?
Not Doug Jones.
Oogie Urbina.
No.
I don't know. Brad Lidge.
No. Sorry. Yeah, I mean
Rob Nen.
So 2 more. No, not
Rick
Rob Nen.
Aguilera.
No.
Tom Henke. Armando Benitez.
No.
Just naming closers. Jeff Shaw.
No.
Jeff Montgomery.
The remaining guys, the remaining
Houston
three,
Street.
No.
Jose Valverde.
Kind of closest with Street, but
What?
they're modern. Like they all pitched in the teens. One guy pitched as recent as 2022.
I don't even know.
He won. Oh, no, he didn't. Never mind.
God damn it. I don't know. Mark Melanson.
Mark Melanson
Okay.
is the guy that I was referring to. Pitched with the D-backs in 2022.
I didn't realize he still pitched in 22.
Yeah.
That wasn't even really my 2022 guess. I was just guessing Mark Melanson. Jonathan Papelbon.
No, not Jonathan Papelbon. Wow, I mean, these guys have just been on so many teams. Okay, so one guy was with the Nationals for...
Sean Doolittle?
No. That was his most extended run was with the Nationals from 2008 to 2014. Wow. He actually pitched in 2022 as well with the Nationals.
Pitched in 2022.
Don't get a harp on that. I don't think you're going to remember. But he spent 6 years with the Nats in the early 2010s.
Spent 6 years with the Nats in the early 2010s.
So when they were, like, good.
How about Osuna?
No.
Alfonseca?
No.
Soria?
No.
Soriano?
No.
Tyler Clippard?
Tyler Clippard is the correct answer.
I don't remember him pitching for
8 different teams. I mean, after he was done with the Nats, he went. He should rattle off the teams: the Mets.
No,
the
no,
A's,
this is
the
boring.
D-backs, the Yankees.
We could have gotten out of here at 12. Don't do this.
And then the final guy also had a save for 9 different teams. He pitched from 1999 to 2013. He was on the Tigers for his final 2 seasons in 2012 and 2013.
2012.
I don't think
so. He wasn't on the Tigers team that played the Orioles.
I don't think you're gonna get this one. His name. I'm trying to figure out if there's any way I can give a hint and give it to you. I don't think there is.
2012 Tigers.
Because he never had more than a 2-year stint with any of his 11 teams.
Who are the other teams?
No, he did have 4 seasons with the Astros. Actually, 5 seasons.
Was it Papa Grande?
No, it wasn't Papa Grande. Is that his real name?
Is it Jose Valverde?
No.
Oh. Then I don't know.
That's what we call Papa. It was Octavio Dotel.
Oh, Octavio Dotel.
Octavio Dotel, 9 different teams. So that is the list that Craig Kimbrell joins.
Okay. All right, very good. Sure. Good for him. God bless. Papa bless. Papa Grande bless.
Maybe you could join the list of 9s. Well, yeah, maybe you could.
Tubular is brought to you by Atman's Deli, now open in Harbor Point. It's everything you loved about Atman's, but they've got a bar, too, so you can go watch the games, hang out, enjoy all the delicious Atman's Deli food, the hand-rolled bagels in the morning, and then as the day goes on, the delicious corned beef piled high, the soups, the desserts, all the deli sandwiches at Atman's are just phenomenal. The pickle bar, they've got a pickle bar and a bar. Just move in. AtmansDeli.com is the website to find their daily specials. All right, Orioles, Red Sox this afternoon, 2 o'clock. Corbin Burns, Brian. Is it Bello or Bayo?
I've heard both. I think it's Bayo.
Bayo.
Is it Brian? I guess we'll find out.
Oh, is it Brian?
I've heard Brian and Brian.
Can we get to the bottom of that?
Well, I think we'll find out in 2 hours.
Presuming that Kevin Brown knows.
I think he does his work.
It's on Masson at 2 o'clock.
Guess who's starting at second base?
Tony Kemp.
Tony Kemp is starting at second base today. Caps are starting in left.
It's also on MLB Network in the rest of the country, so you can enjoy that.
Guess who's starting at third?
Ramon
Arias.
I mean, come on. Nationals Giants at 9:45 on Masson tonight. Maryland baseball's at Georgetown today at 4 o'clock. You can listen to it on the Maryland Baseball Network. You just hate the lineup. Is that what it is?
I mean, I'm looking at I don't know. Whatever.
MLB Network, Mariners, Blue Jays at 7. The She Believes Cup, Canada and the U.S. Women tonight, 7 o'clock on TBS. Followed by, that's why they had to get Pedro Martinez there, is because he's going to give the breakdown of the Canada-U.S. match. Now, they've got Cubs-Padres after that at 10. Maybe the Cubs will blow another 8-0 lead. ESPN, Capitals, Red Wings at 7, Wild, Avalanche at 9:30. Did you realize that the regular season ends this weekend for the NBA and ends next Tuesday for the NHL? Like, college basketball just ended. This is the start of basketball season.
Perfect. Now I can care about.
Yeah, it gets
I
the
can
part
actually
that
care
you
about
actually
hockey
might be
and
interested in.
basketball.
Wizards, Timberwolves, 8 o'clock on Monumental. ESPN also has Wild, Avalanche at 9:30. TNT and True TV for Celtics, Bucks at 7:30. Warriors, Lakers at 10. Champions League today, CBS for Arsenal, Bayern Munich at 3 o'clock. Paramount Plus for Real Madrid and Man City at 3. Wow, I'm kind of surprised that's not the game that's on CBS. That's
Which one's on CBS?
Arsenal, Munich, and Bayern Munich at 3.
Is Arsenal just that much bigger? I mean, like,
I don't know.
Munich
I don't
is
know.
like the best German team ever.
Women's Euro qualifying today, 1 o'clock on CBS Sports Network, Sweden and France, and the USA Network for WWE NXT tonight at 8. Some non-sports highlights?
Not really. Shogun, new episode of that on FX at 10, and that is really the only highlight.
All right. Very good. Very good. All right, we'll do a Masters thing. Enough of you have asked. We'll do it. I just got to, first of all, I got to pay Jen. Congratulations, Jen Babish. She won the NCAA tournament pool, so I'll get her paid out, and then we'll do, I got to divide these golfers. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I found the list that we used for last year, and
we got to we got to rank them based on where they are
yeah.
now. They're odd. We'll do the odds
Yeah,
again.
yeah, I know.
We'll rank them by odds, and we'll give everybody, like, I don't know, a team of 4. Is that what we did last year?
Yes.
All right, we'll figure it out, and when Drew's in here tomorrow, we'll get it into full gear. We got to get a charity, though. Who's a charity I need to do something for? I'll think about that. Oh, God. Hello.
Okay, we'll think about
I'll
that.
think about that today. All right, thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors. And, did I thank the guests? Thanks today to Lou Merloni. Thanks to Sam Dykstra, Patrick Stevens, Wes Brown. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Drew will be here tomorrow.
Yes,
we will preview the Masters. Bob Herrig is going to join us tomorrow. Of course, longtime golf writer. He's got a Tiger Woods book out right now. Anything?
Stuff and things.
Oh, we got to go. We got to step up. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners. Bruce Chris, Live Casino and Hotel, Atman's Deli. AJ Michaels, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Glory Days Grill, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Birds. Duke sucks.